Perfect. So I think we're gonna be ready to start. As you can see in the presentation, everyone can see the presentation, correct? Great, awesome. So you have just some rules, some basic rules for just having this call. We always try to make this as interactive as possible, so try to use the chat. Please try to use the chat or raise your hand if you have any questions for Isabella. Let's try to make it really interactive. Let's try to make it a conversation. It will be really fun for us. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. Well, this is our 5th edition of Network Talks. Well, what is Network Talks? It's easy. It's a space for an exchange of ideas and knowledge aimed at promoting and reimagining new values, economies, and ways of living. So, en español, es un espacio para el intercambio de ideas y conocimiento, bueno, que nos ayude a reimaginar nuevos valores, nuevas economías y nuevas formas de vivir. Y bueno, en esta ocasión tenemos a Isabella Blatter desde Alemania. She's joining us from Germany, and we're about to start. So what is ANT? ANT is a strategic design studio, and we believe that great challenges can only be solved through critical thinking, designing and co-creating with people who see problems from different perspectives. So this is the first time we have someone that is not from Mexico, and we are really happy because what we really want is to have different views on problems and how to use design to solve them. So the name of this talk is Giving Power to New Meanings. In these times, we're seeing a lot of changes on how we start seeing things and we give meaning to things. And Isabella did her thesis on a lot of these new things and in a topic called meaning-driven innovation, which she will talk a little bit more about it in a second. Who is Isabella? She's a service designer and interaction designer. She works for Accenture, and she works with the German government in the application of strategies and human-centered design strategies. She previously worked for Nesta in London and designing new ways of supporting medical attention. And all her work operates in the intersection between business design and culture. Welcome, Isabella. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hola, bienvenidos. Yo también hablo un poco español, así que bienvenidos, pero por ahora vamos a hablar un poco en inglés porque también tenemos gente que solamente hablan inglés. Hello, Amanda. Nice to meet you. I saw you. So thank you very much, Miguel, for inviting me to this talk. And thank you for everyone who joined this talk. So I'm really excited to talk with you about my thesis, about some couple of things, about meaning. And I hope it will be like a fruitful discussion and we can all have like really insightful conversations where we go along. So I don't know, Miguel, have you already handed to me that I can... So everybody can see my desktop, I think. So please, I want to make it like as interactive as possible. So please, if you have like any questions and if you don't understand anything and you want to have like some critical thoughts, please let me know and we will discuss. And I hope we have like a good conversation. So giving new powers to people. So what I'm gonna talk about during the next time. Wait a minute, I have like a short problem with the techniques. One moment, Miguel.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
Because I can only see the chat and know my presentation. So I'm sorry, guys, just need to figure out this quickly. Okay, now it works. Yeah, somehow I can't see the chat, but yeah, I hope I can see if anybody of you have like a question. So what is the content of this short presentation? So we talk about meaning and meaning as a slippery term because like already like the headline is a little bit misleading because meaning always happen in an interaction and it's not something we can purposefully create. So it's always like somebody who receive it and give it something a new meaning. And it's not something you can control, so therefore it's a kind of a slippery term. But then I talk about a little bit like what the academics say, so what are meaning-driven innovation and where does it stem from? And then I show you like some methodology, how you can detect meaning. And then hopefully we will talk about some rituals, how you can embed this new knowledge within your work. Rituals, it's super interesting. So I was thinking a lot about this, and I hope you will have also some insights on that, if this might be useful for you. So what are meanings? As in, meanings should not be thought of as an entity, but rather as structures in motions constantly evolving, heavily context dependent, and generated by individuals, social groups, and things themselves. So this is somebody who said, like Pasad Boratka, who is a designer working for Google, I think, or he worked as Google the last time. And this is exactly what I meant, yeah? So meaning is something which is generated, so meaning is floating around, it's generated within social groups, it's generated within politics, and meanings are also changing, like from one term to another, depending on the period of time and how people talk about stuff. And to make it a little bit more concrete, I gave you like some examples. So for instance, like the facial mask is one of the current examples. So I think before the current time, before Corona, facial mask had like a completely different meaning because it was used in another context, mainly in medicine context, but now it has changed the meaning and gave it like a new meaning, and it's now used, for instance, like as a fashion accessoire, also to protect yourself and to hire the security. Another example, I don't know if you know it, but from the right side, does anybody of you heard about the umbrella revolution?
Does anyone know a little bit about the umbrella revolution?
Thomas, you know it or not?
Can you talk a little bit more about the umbrella revolution, Isabella?
Yes, so the umbrella revolution is like it's like one of the first revolutions in Hong Kong. So now we have like a second demonstration wave, but it was one of the first ones, and that's a really interesting one. So I was like back in Hong Kong and lived in Hong Kong, and so I was like let's say I was like really engaged in this demonstration and what had happened. And what had happened then is like, because it was such a peaceful revolution, the symbol, like the umbrella, became like another symbol. It became like a cultural symbol for democracy. It became like a cultural symbol for justice. And this is like right now, like also like for the second wave of the Hong Kong demonstration, a new symbol, or like the next symbol of what has happened in history. So this is again like an umbrella, which normally is just protecting you from the rain, has now become like a political artifact and had become like a new meaning. And then I brought you like another example, which is about anarchistas. This is something, because yesterday I talked like with Miguel about it, and he told me about this example. So maybe, Miguel, you can tell me why you thought about the anarchists.
No, well, it's just what we talked about. It's the changing of old meanings versus new meanings, and how old meanings usually have a different, that things are changing really, really, really fast. And for example, now with the demonstrations, not only in America, but also in Mexico City, we see anarchist group. And now we see a conversation around the anarchism that it's back in the day, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, anarchism was seen as something different that it's now. Now, if you open Twitter, if you open different media outlets, there's people are giving a new meaning to what being an anarchist is. So now being an anarchist might change really soon. So that's why we're putting these examples, right? Of course, we have also the face mask one, right? It's it had an old meaning and now has the new meaning, and we can talk a lot about those things with other examples. Like you have probably the other examples, right, Isabella?
Yeah. So exactly. So what we now talked about is about what is going around in the world, isn't it? Yeah. So exactly. So due to political circumstances, social circumstances, environmental circumstances, people give things another meaning. But how do you do it like purposefully? Like in the end of the day, we are also like interacting in a corporate environment, at least I do. So there was like a guy, so he's called Roberto Vaganti. He's like a management scholar. So he comes from a management school in Milan. And in 2009, he published a book which was called Meaning-Driven Innovation. And meaning-driven innovation, so he said that designer, like a special designer, have like the capability, and he describes them as a visionary leaders, that they can change purposefully the meaning of any subject and object. And because of that, he says this is like really where radical innovation stems from. So for instance, if you have like the normal discourse about human-centered design strategy, and I'm pretty sure that most of you come like from a design background, or at least are familiar with the design knowledge. So human-centered design strategies or human-centered design is one of the main principles about testing products, about co-creating with the users, etc. But he argues that when you always ask your user what they want to have and what you should do, that you never create like a radical innovation, that you never create something which is truly new. So this is why he says designers do really different. As I'm just explaining what he says, so I'm still open to discuss if I agree to this or not. But he says that designers do this like purposefully, and they do it like with this kind, what he calls meaning-driven innovation. However, what he does, so he describes the designer as somebody as a visionary hero who does know it like intuitively, which might be true for some designers, but maybe not for all designers. And he also neglected, or he didn't came into that discourse or into the methodology, how you can truly detect meaning and how you can make it like a little bit more as methodology, as a ritual, as something you can, as a new habit within how you design new strategies. And I think what is important from him is that because he comes like from an engineering management background, that he's one of the people who credits that culture and everything which has to do with culture is something really important, and that you should always incorporate it within your innovation strategy process.
So you are saying that you are adding another layer to a design process,
Exactly.
which is understanding meaning before designing. Is that correct?
Designing, exactly. So I'm going like a little bit more into detail how you can do this. And I'm quoting here, so this is not something which I invented. So I'm quoting here like a really good design company. So I work for them as a design strategist back in London. They called Precipice Design. I think their new work, or they have now a new name, which is Precipice Design. But they are really good, and they really manufactured like this methodology. And it's something like also like really closely related to future forecasting and all. I think like many big global future trend casting companies such as the Future Laboratory or WSGN, they have similar methodologies. But nevertheless, how it came into the discourse was on the one hand from Roberto Vaganti, but he never came into, or he never did like the connection, there's like a methodology how you can do it. And this is something I will show you a little bit later. Miguel, I can't see the chat, unfortunately. If there's something or any questions.
Yeah, we are all in the chat. Anyone has any questions? Hugo sent a really good picture about anarchism and how that picture actually tries to change not the meaning, but tries to give an explanation and a definition of what really anarchism means. Hugo, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
You can talk.
I'm okay. I'll just keep listening.
So let's try it out. So here are like some couples of examples from his new book. So here we can try it out. So anybody has like any idea about what the old meaning, the examples are really obvious, I guess, but like the example of before MB, you went to holidays and you went to a hotel in order to be alone by yourself and to have like a luxury experience. and you normally went to a hotel. So this is like more or less like the old meaning. I use a travel service because I want to find a safe and good quality hotel. And now Airbnb is like one of the example. It changed because, and now I can't say, I use a travel service because I want to immerse myself within the cultures and probably, and sometimes also like get to know new people. So they completely change the experience, how you normally travel. So this is like out of the discussion. So this is like one of the examples where like a company purposefully, in quotation, changed or generated an old new meaning. But once again, it's not that a company like purposeful, like they don't have like control till the end of the process. It's still like the recipe, like still the consumer who in the end of the day decides what kind of meaning they give to product or services. So this is like just really important to keep in mind.
Isabella, we have a question from the audience. Can you explain about the tagline? It's actually, unless you are Black. Is that means because Airbnb was racially profiling customers?
No, I'm totally sorry. So this is like a picture which I had like from another presentation, and it didn't caught my attention, to be honest.
Oh, yes, I think.
Sorry, because this is like an all advertising, and I haven't seen it yesterday, to be honest.
No worries. Well, actually, it's good. It's good to integrate in the conversation. Apparently, Airbnb was racially profiling Black people, so they didn't get a lot of. I don't know the whole story, but the whole thing is that it was about Airbnb not letting Black people find the cool places.
I'm so sorry about that. I haven't seen it, to be honest. Like I must have been blind when I put it on.
No worries. I think it's good because the old meaning of it's changing, right? Now we saw it as a really progressive company, and now we see that they were actually using technology to racially profile people. So the new meaning for Airbnb for a lot of people after they notice this probably change, correct?
Yeah. Great. Yeah, and that's interesting what you say, like especially like what we see recently, the movements. This is like also like another really interesting thing to observe and watch. It's like which is something different than trends, but it's kind of similar, but those are like social movements like where people gather in the fight for something and then make finally like a change, which is also like super interesting, which is also like within the realm of meaning, but it's like another context. But this is something I just wanted to, it would be another talk, I think.
Great. Isabella, I just like a little quick pause. There's some people trying to join the conversation. If you click on participants on your Zoom, you can see who's trying to join. Yes, can you put your keynote again?
Yes. So like another example would be how you use normally a thermostat. So the old meaning would have been, I use a thermostat because I want to control the furniture. And the new meaning is now I want to feel comfortable, and therefore I'm using like a thermostat. It's also because like, I mean, nest in the thermostat is also something which has something to do with privilege. It's a luxury. It's not necessarily a luxury thing, but it also has, it looks good, which is also something people want and therefore want to buy it. This is like more or less what Gandhi says. So here again, it's like more or less like a summary, which what I've said before. So you have like, he divides innovation between incremental and radical innovation. And so you can have like a radical innovation due to technology pushes, but where you really find like also a radical innovation if you are like on the cultural meaning side, which is like the horizontal line. And if you combine like technology innovation within, which has also like a cultural impact, then of course you have like really, really big innovation, he says. and those he say those are technology epiphany. Probably I pronounce it a little bit bad. And if you only if you only do like if you only stay within your like in the co-creation and discourse, then you never, he says, you only stay within the incremental, not changing stage. Again, so this is something which I kind of agree. So basically right now, like within my work, which I'm currently doing in Germany and working like with the German government, like working with the citizens directly and creating new services, this is for them like radical change. So for them, it's really something to create something with the citizens. For them, it's like absolutely new, it's something unexpected, and I'm pretty sure there will come out, or in some cases, something comes out. This is like.
So you are saying that just in order to create radical change, you have to have a technology push combined with design-driven innovation. And you're saying that design thinking and human-centered methodologies can't really bring radical change. Is that correct?
So I won't go like for now within this presentation. Let's stay okay. We stay with Klaus Krippendorff's definition of design is making sense of things. So within this, we discuss meaning as a sense-making activity, and this is kind of logical, isn't this? So for instance, you give meaning to things which has like a personal connect to you. So something which is like let's say a ring, a jewelry or something, and you have like a connection to it because it's a present from your parents, and therefore you make sense out of the world by giving meaning to things which occurs around you. And now we go like to the fun part, more or less. Okay, how do you detect meaning? Do you have like any questions so far about meaning, or like any examples or anything which occurs to you?
We don't see anything on the chat.
Okay.
Also, people can raise their hands if they want. And I'll give them, I'll make sure you have the voice. So,
so how to detect meaning? And this is something which is now, so just in summary, so we said like meaning is something which is really something personal in the one hand, people talk about, and then you can detect meaning. So, but how do you use it if for your business, or you want to define like a strategy, and how you then detect those kind of meanings? And this is something which is really, a methodology. So you have like, you have like a lot of, so you get like your client's brief, and then you do like a lot of data collection, and it's mainly like qualitative data in the first thing. And those kind of data and those kind of collection of data come like from different persons or people with different disciplines. So there could be like people from social psychology, people who have knowledge in semiotics, in cultural anthropology, or in analytical psychology. And the methodologies you use are, for instance, like discourse analysis. Everybody knows what discourse analysis is?
I'm guessing everyone, well, can you talk a little bit more, like a short definition of discourse analysis? Like, and so people can understand a little bit better?
Yes, of course. So discourse analysis is, for instance, you are collecting, or you're paying attention to how people are talking about things, and what kind of words, for instance, they are using, and who is using, and from which backgrounds they are coming from, and who is like, for instance, not raising their voice, and who is like excluded from the discourse. So you're collecting like a lot of data about things which are not mentioned, and you try to analyze it from a language point of view, from how they use, for instance, pictures, and how they use symbols, and how they use words and terminologies. And those are like all the kind of cultural methodologies you use in order to collect the data on a qualitative basis. And then while you're collecting all the massive amount of data, then you can detect like the potential of meanings. And then after you have like your different meanings and you collect it and you find like the patterns, out of those you can find like opportunities and strategies or things which are left behind yet, or which are not mentioned yet. And while after you detected your meaning patterns, you derive your opportunities, then you can derive your design strategies or your design principles or your new service, a business strategy. And afterwards, while you do like all the cultural analysis beforehand, then afterwards you can use like quantitative or qualitative methodologies in order to test your new product and service and see if like the hypotheses which are based on the cultural data collection are true. So I think like, yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. No, Isabella, this is amazing. So you're saying that before designing, we have to immerse in culture and we have to understand how people are using words, how people are using symbols, how people are talking, what people are saying before designing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of some things that you have worked which gave you a potential of meanings before designing something?
Yeah, of course. So exactly. So this is exactly what I'm saying. So before you're doing like you're designing your product service or like even like a business strategy, you should look at the culture. And it's not only what Miguel just says. It's not only like what do people say, do and speak about. It's also like who is speaking about it and where they come from, because this gives you like also a notion about who is left out of the discourse and who not, which is also like might become like an opportunity, which you never know. But for instance, so when do you use like those kind of really cultural immersive? So back in London, we use those kind of things if you really have like, for instance, like an overcrowded market. So let's say you need to design like new water taps. Or other example, you need to design like new toilets for a luxury hotel. So how do you design like a new toilet? Yeah, because I mean, a toilet is like a functional product. There are like a lot of new toilets in the market. I mean, how you can design it like new? How does it like look like more luxury? So there's like, you know, I mean, everybody knows like how a toilet looked like, and there might be like a little bit more innovative ideas, maybe not, but in the end of the day, how do you design it that it really outstands, and how you design like a range of different possibilities. And this is like exactly, for instance, how you approach like this kind of methodology. So for instance, if we are in the space of the bathroom, then the first step would be, okay, what is like the relation humans to water? So what does water mean to humans? You can start with that one. And then you do like this kind of global cultural analysis, and you detect like what water means to human in the first place. And then step by step, you go like even more with the hypothesis, asking the right questions and collecting the data. And out of that, you find like, for instance, like, right, I go to the next slide. Okay, we can come back to that in a short minute. But this is like basically what I was talking about. So you do like this kind of data collection. So for instance, like in our case, we want to know how to design like a new toilet, which is meaningful for people. And we say, okay, let's in the first case see what does water even mean to people. And we start with this. We start with interviews, observation, and data collections. This is like the last one. And you do like this kind of micro analysis where you're collecting like a lot of data, which could be everything. Yeah, it could be like coming out of primary research, could be, but also like photos, or it could be advertising. It could be like even anything, like newspapers, like how people shop, and how is like water allocated in different advertisings. How do people talk about water? How do they speak? How does like a water bottle look like? etc. And you find like all this little patterns everywhere, and this is like your microanalysis. And then you find like your macroanalysis, where you've merged patterns into another, and then you see like that slowly, step by step, patterns are repeated, and you find like, and you create like those meaning patterns. And then on the last step, you create like this semiotic squares, and you can map it into a semiotic square. A semiotic square, this is something which I just skipped, but semiotics is like the study of signs and their meanings. And a semiotic square is more or less like a logical square where you try to analyze your data, that it makes sense and there's like a logic behind, because you know that many times like qualitative data is reviewed sometimes as not as, it's as too subjective, because like instead of quantitative data you have like numbers behind it, and with qualitative data there's sometimes like this argument that it's like not subjective, that is only subjective and not objective. So to make it like more scientific, or I mean, you don't even know to make it more scientific, but to bring it like a logic behind, people use, or like we use like those kind of semiotic squares. And with those semiotic squares, you map like the different opportunities, and you see, okay, those are like new opportunities. So for instance, there's like never like a toilet created which uses like water, or like how water is explored as being authentic, how is water explored as being human, how is water explored as being explosive. And then after you created this, you then started to map it out and to see also like what the competitors do and try to map it into your semiotic square, and you see like gaps where no toilets have been placed, and you can rank it around prices. Yeah. And I mean, it seems like a lot of work. It's not too much work. So if you do like this kind of analysis, I mean, it depends on the question and like the product or service you want to create, but it's more or less like 2 to 3 weeks you do those kind of analysis.
Yes, it's the first time I see this type of analysis, and I think it's great to incorporate it, so people start incorporating not only, well, this, but discourse, right? A little bit deeper of why people are talking about certain things, to understand it first and then see the patterns. I believe that this is great for someone who's, for example, here in Mexico City, they're dismantling the racism, against racism department from the government. And I think the government maybe should be able to also show us how can they design something into a design principle. I think like talking about racism these days, I think it's something that it should be used from people around the world. Thank you so much, Isabella. You can continue, sorry about it. Anyone has any questions or any comments for Isabella?
So, and the last step would be, okay, how you create like a ritual out of those kind of meaning-centered design strategies. And of course, I mean, what I just showed to you was like one example how we did it, like in this little design company, and how they embedded those kind of meaning-driven innovation. And of course, it's like a practice, it's a ritual, and it's like a methodology they discovered for themselves, also like in dialogue with other cultural strategists, I would say, and it's practice, of course. But what I found out like a little bit that so meaning, yeah, so it's on the one hand it's like really basic, but on the other hand it was also like for me like a kind of discovery. But in the end of the day, like in order to create meaning, or you detect meaning when people talk about it. And when do people talk about things? They talk about things when it affects them, when it moves them, and then they are saying something around it, and then they are talking about it. So whatever product or service you create, it needs to move people. And that's basically like the one of the key messages. It needs to affect them. It really needs to evoke something out of them. And even like a toilet, which needs to affect you or needs to move you in a certain way, and then you can bring like a new meaning to it. Okay, this is like one important thing is also like if you talk about meaning, and so when we talk about that people need to be moved and people need to be affected by it, then we normally go into an identity work in a kind of way. So for instance, so if people talk about, or if you detect new meanings and want to do like this cultural analysis, then you look in your environment and you try to identify all the different symbols, all the different patterns, and and try to map the trends and the movements you see within your environment, and you observe the people, the behavior, and what they are thinking about and how they talk about it. You go into the belief systems, and after the belief systems you go like within the value, and then you go like in the identity. So normally what you do like as with this kind of analysis, you go like really deep into the, like an onion, you go like really deep into, okay, why does people be moved by that, and why do they buy the certain project, and what does it really mean, etc. So you go like step to step to step to step until you come into the closest area of, okay, this is really, what does it mean for people? And I mean the basic questions, or like if like even like within my thesis, I had like problems to really truly identify like a ritual, because I showed you the methodology. But maybe like the one ritual I would give to you is like that it's always about, you see like the what, with detecting the patterns and detecting the environment and gathering the record. You see how people are interacting with the new services, with the business, with the product. But then you go like one step further, and you ask the why they are doing it, and even go into the why.
Oh, great. For example, talking about rituals and detecting how people interact with services, should we talk about something? Maybe we have 14 minutes, so we can maybe work with the participants on talking about just any service and trying to understand how it kind of brings meaning to people, and how it affects as a driver. It's the effect as a driver to become to overcome that space, which is the liminal space. So, for example, maybe now that everything's changing, a payment. I don't know. I'm just talking about something maybe like restaurants, right? Oh, Tomas is asking the question if you can show the slide example of the picture where you were taking note. Is that the, I think, is that the semiotic square, Tomas?
Yeah, you mean those ones? This is an example out of an essay I wrote back. So Thomas, and Miguel, we went together to the masters, and this is an essay I wrote about. So like back in 2015, there was like the big, at least in Germany, like the big discussion about refugees. And what does it mean to, not even what does it mean to be a refugee, but it was all about shall we welcome people who need our help, or shall we not welcome? And it was like a really big political discussion within Germany. And so for that, like in order to apply this discourse analysis and to learn it, I went into the discussion of what does it mean to be like refugee in the first place. And so I was like, in this case, I was collecting advertisements. So this is like from UNHCR, and trying to see how how refugees are displaced, and why do we think like in a certain way about it, and ask it.
Exactly. So yeah, how would this image change if it had a refugee working in technology with opportunities, it would be very different, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like really totally interesting. I think the most interesting thing was when I like for that research, I went to a refugee camp and worked there for a weekend or for 4 or 5 days. And it was like, for me, I think like the most crucial experience was when I was helping out with giving people who arrived to Germany, and I gave them like new clothes, and I was like with among other helpers, and they asked me, and there were like 2 girls around, I think like 14 years old, and they said they want to have like a white trouser. So I was going back to the closers and was looking like for the white trousers. And one of the helpers asked me, why do you looking for trousers? They should be how does this like in Germany, but they should be happy that we even help them. And that was for me like a crucial moment, because in Germany, like at least like with the people I was working, they expected, because we are helping people, they should be grateful. But what they didn't understand is that the people who come to us are still humans and want to look good, which is a basic human need. And like especially like even like advertisements like that, like really show how you are, how the media is converting certain kind of pictures.
Yeah, this is amazing how through understanding communications we can start perceiving patterns of why people think the way they think about certain types of different problems. Like refugees in here in Mexico, we have different problems, and all over the world, media makes us create images of things. But if we look at them really closely, and as Tomás say, understand what kind of details to look in different images and signs and people, we can start detecting meaning. And this is amazing. This is great, Isabella.
And yeah, and for instance, in this, and like the reaction which I observed in the place where I helped out, it was like exactly what the whole politics said. Yeah, so refugees are victims. Yeah, and this is like also what the picture says to us. Yeah, refugees are victims, and they should be grateful if you are helping them. But this
yes,
is
Tomás is asking if we can see another example.
Yes, of course. This one. So this was like just the. So this is like how they depicted somebody. So she was like. So it's like from the campaign, refugees contribute, and so this is like completely different how you proposed what refugees are. So she's looking like a hero. So she's like looking as somebody who is it's a little bit political, but who comes from a refugee background, and she's a hero. So she overcame the status of being a victim. And
amazing.
I mean, you can look at the smile of her face, her body language, and you even have like but it's like, and virtually, and then you have like this one, which is like completely different, isn't it?
Yes. So what can you say to people who are starting into taking a deeper look at how symbols and discourse analysis? What is the one thing that you have like as a takeaway for people to really look at, or what is some sort of principle you have when looking at this?
So yeah, it's basically like the first thing before you jump into designing a product, designing a service, or designing a business, or whatever it is. Take a step back, ask critical questions, and maybe take like at least 1 or 2 days in order to really see, okay, what are the people talking about, why they are saying those kind of words in a certain way, and what does it mean, and what kind of language they use, and is there maybe something interesting about it, what they are not using, and why are people left out behind the discourse and whatnot. You don't need to go like into this kind of really deep analysis, which I showed you as an example from the design place, but really looking into what people are doing and how they behave and what they are doing, and how they are doing it, and then in the next step, why they are doing the thing they are doing. And you find, I think, like many answers within the pictures, the symbols, the media they are using, etc. And then you probably find something which is interesting to discover and go further.
Yeah, so this would be in your quadrant, in your framework. This would be the first part of the framework, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The first part. So it's always like the cultural analysis before you go to human-centered design strategies.
Yes, it's incredible that it's something that looks easy to do, and people just we see images every day in the internet, and what happens if we start detecting patterns, right? What happens if we, as all designers, strategic designers, try to look at images differently, how it can help us designing products? I think this should be included. Actually, there should be some sort of workshop or some sort of exercises for doing this discourse analysis in a fast way, and let people have 2 days to look at things. It's incredible, Isabella. Thanks so much for showing us how you work, how's your work process, and how you integrate it into designing products and services. We're gonna open for any questions for people if they have to Isabella. We have 5 more minutes, and if anyone has any questions for Isabella, it's the time to raise your hand. We have a comment from Marcela. She's also a futurist, and she's saying it was really, really amazing, Isabella.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sorry about the technical issues, but thank you.
No worries. And yeah, we usually do this in the afternoons here in Mexico City. We usually have more participants, but we have some here, and I think it was great. We're gonna make a little recap of the talk, so other people can understand what we talked about. I think we might be able to focus here on the discourse analysis. So I think we lost Isabella, and we saw that some people actually were trying to join in and they couldn't. But we're gonna make a little recap for everyone who joined the talk. Please follow us on Instagram at weareantmx, and also on our website weareant.mx. We have resources. We're gonna try to do some little discourse analysis exercise for you guys to download during this month, and hopefully we can have more participants here in Network Talks to talk more about how to integrate new things into the design process. I think we lost Isabella, but thank you so much for joining. Anyone has any other questions or comments? We have 3 more minutes. So Thomas is asking about how, till which extent do you think this kind of analysis can be naturalized as part of your everyday practice? Isabella is not here, but we're gonna save this question to Isabella. Yeah, exactly. How do we integrate this kind of thinking as people are using design thinking these days? Yeah, we have a few more questions that we're gonna save for Isabella, and maybe what we do is we have something in social media for you guys next week. Yes, but excellent questions. We're gonna save them. I'm gonna actually take a little screenshot of the questions, and we're gonna try to have a little conversation with Isabella, and we're gonna post it for you guys next week on social media. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. Please, we're gonna have a really good one on July 2nd with Círculo from Mexico, a social innovation agency, and they're gonna talk about behavioral economics, also paired with design processes. So we're having these really amazing conversations let people know about this. Let's try to challenge the way we see design. Let's try to challenge this new normality. Let's try to integrate these new practices into our design processes, which is great. And thank you so much for joining. See you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much, guys. Isabella is back. What we have, I think we have Isabella back. Oh,
yes, no. I don't see anything anymore. There's just a joke.
Oh, it's Isabella. We had a few questions from the audience, but we have 1 hour for the talk, so we're gonna send them to you. We're gonna try to answer them. We're gonna try to also make a little discourse analysis, little micro workbook with you, which I think it's great. Just like something, how do you look at images and how we can integrate this into the design process. And for social media, we're gonna try to answer these questions for you. I'm gonna send it to you. We can chat and we can answer to the people next week.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining.
Gracias.
Thank you, Isabella.